Shut up and sit down.
I clicked in the wrong order again, but that's me. Hello, good evening, and welcome to another episode of BuildPaintPlay. I'm Dave.
Greetings, programs. I'm Jake, as always, and tonight we're joined by the fantastic GM himself, Graham McNeill.
Woo!
Nice to be here, Dave and Jake. Thanks for having me on.
Graham, I don't know if you noticed. I did this for you.
I did. I saw I was on a carefully curated backdrop there.
as opposed to mine, not at all carefully.
Yeah, no, that's
bomb shelter
Dave,
that you're in, Dave.
That is carefully organized.
It is.
Dave reorganizes all those cardboard tubs and rebalances those boxes carefully every week.
It's true. Some of them do fall, but
Oh, okay. Hang on. Excuse me 1 second. My youngest is outside getting the mail, and they've managed to close the door behind them. So seconds, I will be back.
Not a problem. We'll see you soon.
Very nice. This is what happens when we do everything live, which I'm totally fine with. That's why we do it this way.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot more fun and exciting and sort of seated pants sort of stuff. I didn't realize I haven't turned on my my front light here, so I get to do the same thing while.
And
There we go. Okay,
Graham, I'm loving your hat. I'm on several shows. I've had Iron Maiden stuff on. Like, I love Maiden. They're doing a big tour of the UK in the summer.
Yes, I've seen it. I'm looking forward to them coming back to the States.
Yep.
Yeah, I was hoping that it would line up with UK Games Expo, but they're going to be like UK Games Expo is what it's like May 30th to like June 1st or something, and they're going to be in England like starting on the 16th. And I was like, oh man, it's all like 2 weeks off.
Yeah, it's like there's a band I love called the Creep Show from Canada, and every time I've gone to Canada where they're playing, they were in Nottingham where I was living, and it's happened once or twice too often to make me feel that it wasn't like we're just ducking this son of a bitch. We're never going to let him see it.
Oh man,
fantastic! That's awesome. I'm going to say hi to folks in the chat. So we've got Dave Hummel is here. Alan Borthwick is here, Scott Radham, Richard Ralph, Luis Sanchez, hello, Chris Kemig is here, Jez Hunt as well, hi Jez, Josh Potter, we've got a few other folks watching, but excellent. Graham McNeill wrote some good books, some of them I've even read, says Josh Potter.
Well, I can't ask for more than that.
Awesome.
I saw Luis today in person. He was in the store. He picked up a bunch of Army Painter stuff.
Oh, awesome, nice. And Scott says, I can tell by Graham's accent he's from Louisiana. Pretty sure that's it.
Deep in the bayou.
Sure. Sure.
Awesome. So, Graham, I'm not sure if you've used StreamYard before.
I have not, no.
But on the right-hand side of your screen, there should be a...
If you click on the
comments bit open. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, excellent. So
I
that's
can see
the chat coming through live. Awesome. So, what are you reaching?
I went through
my daylight painting light, because if I don't have it on, it just looks like I'm shrouded in darkness, trying to be a mysterious DM or something like that.
Nice.
But if I've got it on,
I went through.
It looks like I'm being interrogated by the Stasi.
I went through my drawer and I was trying to
right
find
angle, just the right brightness to make it look like I'm actually alive and healthy.
I was trying to find stuff because I know Dave's known you for years, and I actually think I met you
2004, man.
I think so, because like this was the second one that I worked, I think.
Right.
And I was working for
slightly, yeah.
I was working for Vince Rossbond at Black Library, and I had come down. I was a bunker manager. I had come down, and they wanted volunteers, and Vince had requested us again. So we were working in that area, and I think you were there, and I forget who the other. I think Mike Lee was there, and I forget who else. There were like 4 or 5 Black Library authors, and you guys were off doing your own thing. You had like your autograph session, and then you were playing and doing other stuff too. And I met you once at the booth, and then later on that night, Jeff Brooks and I, Jeff Brooks, bunker manager, Jeff Brooks and I ran into you at a bar, and you were a couple scotches deep, but very gracious. It was super nice to meet you. And I was like, they were like, "Oh, you met Graham?" I was like, "He's not gonna." I'm like, I remembered it because I was like, I met Graham McNeill. I was like, he's not gonna remember it at all.
Well, I mean, the Baltimore Games Days after parties tended to be, very liquid based.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, Vince is awesome. I stayed with Jeff when I came over to Baltimore a few years after. Yeah, good people.
Yeah, Jeff's the man. I talked to him a couple weeks ago. He's doing good. He's still in Malaysia now.
Yeah, it was Malaysia last I heard.
Yeah, he's still in Kuala Lumpur. So,
no, good. I'll say hi to him next time you chat to him.
I'm just gonna send him this link. I'm just gonna be like, "Here, Jeff, watch this."
And he'll click in just as I'm going, "That son of a bitch, Jeff, when he did this."
Excellent. Cool. So tonight, Graham, we're going to have a chat about some of your writing exploits over the last several decades.
Don't say it like that.
Pardon?
Don't say it like that, man. God. When Jake held up the 2004 T-shirt, I'm like, oh man, that's going all the way back.
Yeah. The other, I will say, the other day I was like, oh, that's right. I'm not 54. I'm 51. So for some reason, my brain is artificially adding years to my age.
Yeah, don't do that.
Are you?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe so I feel better. I'm out walking. I'm out.
Well, it gives you that extra spring in your step. I've got 3 more years left. 3 more years extra onto the total. My 3-10.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, he's the most energetic 54-year-old I've ever seen. He's got the energy of easily a 51-year-old.
51-year-old.
Exactly. That's how I'm going to put it. But anyway, so yeah, as we mentioned, we had a quick chat about hobby stuff that we might have been up to. Jake.
Again, I'm still chipping away at those the starter set for the Flashpoint. I knocked out the first 4. I'm gonna finish the other 4 tomorrow, and then I'll show them off next week. I'll have them done. I'm doing them based on the characters from the cartoon. So instead of doing it the easy way, which is just paint 4 red guys and paint 4 blue guys, I was like, nah, they're all going to be individual. So I'm painting 8 individual models instead of 2 squads of 4. So it's a little more time, but like they'll look cooler. I'm trying to do it almost exclusively with speed paints. But like in order to get that, like the metallic effect for Master Chief, I'm going to use the Turbo Dork paint that Greg recommended. So
Right.
So I'll bust that. I got to dig through that box and find it, but it's in there somewhere.
Fantastic. Cool. How about you, Graham? What have you been up to, hobby wise? I know you've got some
hobby
stuff.
wise. Yeah. I'm working my way through the Leviathan. Well, I've got a few sort of old things bundled together. I'm working my way through the Leviathan box sets. I've done all the Tyranids, done most of the Space Marines, painting them up as Imperial Fists at the moment.
Okay.
Because I figured I have quite a lot of blue guys already, so I thought I'd try my hand at something different. And when I sprayed the Space Marines from the Leviathan box, whether it was too warm, I was too close or something, I blinked badly or something, but the primer just, you know, went to town on them and gummed up half the details and so on. And I was ready to just, these guys are ruined. But then I saw some pictures of people doing, you know, really, you know, messed up, weathered Imperial fists, and I thought, oh, actually, you know, that might be a good way to save them. So it's not a lack of attention to detail in my painting. It's just they've been in battle, they've been weathered and battered by the fires of combat, sort of thing. So I'm doing that. I'm painting. I've got the on deck, doing all the Hive Storm terrain. Just
all right.
Just got a couple of bits left of that. So I'm mixing it up so that I don't ever get stale. So I'm doing, you know, like a character, a unit, a piece of terrain, and just working my way through them all. And hopefully it should be finished fairly soon. Hopefully then, and this is possibly one of the signs of the end time. But then my pile of shame will all be painted.
What? No. We got to get you some more stuff.
That's why I think the only way to save the world is buy some more models, because clearly, you know, all my models that I own painted, that's not right.
I was told when I got hired at Games Workshop that like you can't die until you've painted your last model, and I was like, well, I'm effectively immortal. Like
I'm immortal at this point.
That's taller than I am.
Yeah, I think it's like one of these, like when the Tower of London, when if the ravens leave, then England shall fall, kind of thing. You finish your pile of shame, and then, you know, Ragnarok is upon us.
Graham, you can't let that happen. You have to buy something insane.
Fine, I'll do it. I'll you know, because I've got Magnus and Mortarion, so I should probably get a Fulgrim and an Angron. That'll take me for a while to finish them.
Yeah, definitely.
Angron's cool. I love the Angron model.
Angron is cool, but
really
that
cool.
Fulgrim model, the Fulgrim Ascended model.
The crazy thing about that is, like, we have a guy at our store, and I've seen like 3 of them now. People were converting that model way before that model got released. Like, so when Marathi came out,
the Marathi,
they just took Marathi, and I was like, that's genius. Like, you literally just use Marathi with their bat wings and their scorpion tails. Like, that's an easy Fulgrim.
You're halfway there. You know, I just get the forward world one, stick it on the top, job done.
Just add.
But I never get round to it, and then by the time I will get round to it, they'll probably be a plastic model, so it'll be win-win all round.
Yeah, nice.
Ridiculous.
Do you have a gaming group that you play with out there?
Occasionally, yeah. There's a hobby store in Burbank. Sometimes go to, and I've got a couple of friends around this neck of the woods that come around sometimes. And our oldest son Evan, he and I get the odd game of Kill Team, or if we're feeling really adventurous, we'll break out 10th edition. Yeah, so you know, they're not all just for show. We do actually, you know, roll dice in anger on the tabletop. Yeah,
nice. I always find that even though, like, whenever I sit down to paint, I realize I may never actually play a game with those models. I always find that when I do play a game with them, that I'm like excited to paint more for.
Exactly. We had a game of Ultramarines versus Necrons recently, and it was a cracking game. You know, came down to like the last turn, last few dice rolls to, you know, see how the game ended. And I thought, I really need to get some more close combat guys. So I'm like straight in looking onto the web store and going, what models will I get for that? So yeah, it's good. It's great. I love that sort of cycle where you're painting and going, can't wait to get these guys on the tabletop, and then you get onto the tabletop and you realize, oh, these guys did really well back in the done with some of those. Let's get these guys, and it's the circle of plastic life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't play nearly as much as I would like to play, but you know, because the siren song of my son's Xbox is often louder than moving toys around a tabletop with his old man.
Yeah, that's I can understand that. That's well, I can understand that your son is going through that.
Yeah. Dave he understands the words you have used. He doesn't understand the scenario.
Oh no, I can understand somebody else being excited to play an Xbox rather than play a game or paint models. Me, I it's just the models, of course. But
yeah.
Graham knows.
I mean, the way I look at it is like, even if all I do is paint the models, it's still worthwhile, because for a while, a couple of years back, I've been painting for years and years and years, But for a while, I just kind of not fell out the habit, but just the amount of work I was doing, it meant that I just didn't have time to paint models, and I was finding that I wasn't making time for the things that, sparked joy, whether that was reading a book, painting a model, playing a video game, and so on. So for a while, I ended up just sort of like literally putting into my calendar half an hour here to read book, paint model, and so on, just to get me back in the habit of it, because I was getting so stressed with work and stuff that I needed a sort of a way to decompress, and painting for me is absolutely that. It's at the end of a day, just breaking out the models, getting some paint on, and it's a real stress reliever where there's nothing. It's just me, the paint, and the model, and that's it. There's no demands of me. I don't have to think too hard. I'm just having fun putting paint in the model, and even if it never sees the table for a game, I've achieved something worthwhile. I've just chilled out. I'm better company because I'm more relaxed, and it's just a lovely way to just de-stress.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. Having that habit, or building a habit, or blocking out time is definitely key.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that anymore because I've sort of reminded myself just how much I enjoy these things and how much pleasure I get from it. So, and like I say, even if it never makes the tabletop, which is not often, because I like to use all of the things I've got, even if it's just in a silly, like let's just chuck everything on the table and see how it goes kind of thing. You've still created something. You can still look at it on the shelf and go, yeah, there's no other model quite like that in the world. I painted that with my skill or lack thereof, and it's there. I did that, and that's still worthy of something, even if it never gets on the tabletop.
Yeah, absolutely. Just quickly in the chat, Scott Radham has suggested Dan Abnett said that at the secret Black Library Fight Club, Graham McNeill was his most feared.
Yes. Well, that's why he killed me off in a story, to sort of weaken my mana over the many universes and so on. Yeah, I mean, Dan's got a lot of weaponry in his house, so that'd be a tough fight.
A tough fight. Nice. That's good. Excellent.
Dogs in the house, and we've got a puppy. We've got a Malinois puppy we've had for the last 3 months, and if she even suspects somebody's moving around outside the house, you get what you just heard, what we call her party bark, which is just like werewolf-like howl. So you may hear that a couple of times over the course of this.
I get it. My dogs are upstairs. They protect my wife. So it's like the mailman can come by and they're like, if you come in here, we'll kill you. And I'm like, guys, it's the mailman.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ours, they're all German Shepherds or Mals, so they're very protective, and this is their turf. And God help you if you decide to come on here with evil intent.
Yeah.
I mean, they're lovely. They're big sweeties, but they bark a lot if there's people coming by.
Cool. I have cats, so there's nowhere near as much barking.
Some nice nasty scratches though.
There's that. Yeah. Absolutely. I decided to take a leaf out of Dave Hummel's book and assemble some tanks. So
yeah, I see you got a whole bunch of Dorns. Or no, those are Lehman
a lot
Russes.
of armor in front of you there.
Yep. There we go. So yeah, they're Lehman Russes. They're the Horus Heresy Lehman Russes, Vanquisher turrets. So I got excited by all of the Deathcore Krieg stuff that was shown recently. So
yes. I did, because I've got the Krieg from the Octarius box set for Kill Team.
All right. Yep.
So, and I did enjoy painting these guys up, because Imperial Guard are one of these armies that they've always appealed to me in theory. Because I love that the impossible odds of the ordinary grunt against demons from the depths of hell, But then I look at, the number of guys you would have to have for an army, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing that.
That's
So
why
if
you
they
got to
were-
do a tank company.
Yes, if they were somehow like less detailed, because you're like painting one guy, and I can't bring myself just to do that's just a grunt. There you go, done. I'd want to paint them as well as any other model, and then just seeing them being taken off in droves from the battlefield just break my heart. So I've yet to step up to the plate as far as guard goes.
I always find having been an Imperial Guard player for a long time that it can be incredibly disconcerting for your opponent when you're
With the numbers you can put on the table.
Well, not just the numbers you can put on the table, but the numbers you can take off the table and still feel fine. Like there's no. How many did you kill? Oh, only 15. Okay.
Only 15. That's all right. I've got 80 more. That's fine.
And 7 from this one. Oh, all right.
Perfect Imperial Guard General then. 1,000 dead. Well, I have 10,000 more. What of it?
When are you going to do something that's actually going to damage my army? Come on. Keep going.
Yeah. Statistically, this is insignificant.
Yeah.
Guard is
getting
weird
crushed
too,
under the tracks of a Chaos Land Raider.
There's
It's
guard is weird too
insignificant
because there's so many options of how you can build that army. Like they're one of the few armies that there's so many ways you can build a list. Because you've got not only is it's guard is guard, but then you have all the different. I'm gonna run Armageddon Legion, I'm gonna run Catechins, or I'm gonna run. You know what I mean? Like there's so many picks. So that gives you a lot of variety, and then it's also do I want to make an armored company list where all of my guys are in tanks? Or do I want to make an all mechanized infantry list like the Steel Legion, where it's every armored fist squad is in a chimera? Or do I want to do like the old Elysian drop troops? Or now you can do it with the Scions. Like you have a bunch of jetpack dudes and a bunch of Valkyries and Vultures, and or you can do a mix, or you can just do the leaf blower list, which is just a gazillion troopers on the field. There are a few things that are intimidating when you see a guard army that's mostly infantry. No matter what your army is, you look at that and you're like, that's a lot of guys.
That's a lot of dudes. Yeah,
I love it.
as I don't, you can't probably see, my shelves along there, like that whole top shelf is Ultramarines and Nids. This one is all Death Guard and Necrons. Below that, I've got my Old World Empire army.
Nice.
And then
that's a lot of dudes. Empire. That's another one of those armies.
That's another big army. Yeah, I mean, and there's a shelf just over there that's got my knights, my Primarchs, a lot of my kill teams, a lot more Necrons, and a Tau army, and a whole bunch of Gene Stealers. So this desk that I'm on now is my new one, and it's a very long desk, and my old one is just on the other side of it, and it is also packed full of miniatures. All the Tyranids from Indomitus, the Imperial Fist that I've painted from Indomitus, and all the terrain that I've done from Kill Team, and it's full of miniatures now. So the idea of starting an Imperial Guard army when I am already running out of space to put miniatures in place is no, that's not happening.
You're like, honey, we got to put a new wing on the house.
We need a new house, dear, because this one's we've run out of room for miniatures on this house. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
You'll have to do that for sure. Scott Radam says, Graham, when you ask GW to make the guardsmen less detailed, maybe ask them to cut back on the doodads like purity seals and patches. Ask them to relax on the skulls too. They don't take my calls anymore.
No, I suspect that call would be laughed at if I did that if I was to call up for that one. So
yeah.
But then again, that's half the fun. Like painting the miniatures and making them unique and getting into all those little details. Because when I get the big goggly things on.
Oh God!
You like getting into all that kind of detail because it makes the model pop. And we don't want to deny the sculptors their chance to show off their tiny details.
Yeah.
Dave, didn't you convert a unit that was all like Salvlar Chem Dogs or something?
Yeah, way back in the day for the Battle for Armageddon. What do you call it? What mine's going blank?
Oh, like the global event, like
global campaign. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Global campaign.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have like him.
That was one of the first books I worked on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's just quickly. We're going to do our little sponsor spot, Graham.
Okay.
And then we'll jump in and talk about your writing career, including studio time. But sorry. I'm going to yep, here we go. And done. So first up, I'm going to say thank you to the Army Painter, our season sponsor. We're very excited. Well, I'm very excited. I'm going to be at PAX Unplugged this coming weekend.
Kat's already there.
Well, she's on her way. She's driving from Dallas for some reason. I have no idea why. But yeah, it's going to be great to catch up with Kat and Caleb at the Army Painter booth. I'm going to be hanging out at the Game Envy booth, doing some painting and slinging some books. So if you happen to be coming to PAX Unplugged, make sure you check us out. I think I'm not sure where the Army Painter booth is, but the Game Envy booth is 4035.
Ben will be there. Ben's coming out to hang out, so you'll see him on, I think, Saturday, and then
awesome.
You have to make sure you say hi to Chris and Heather. They'll be at the 9th level booth too. So,
yep, go and check them out. And I guess Greg DeStefano from Turbo Dork will be there as well.
Yep.
There'll be a bunch.
I'm assuming Adam will be there.
Possibly, I don't know.
I mean, it's his hometown. Like I would assume that he's going to be there.
maybe. But yes, so we're excited. We will see everybody at PAX Unplugged. Hopefully, we'll see everybody at PAX Unplugged this weekend. Next up, Jake did a Black Library special. Not Black Library, Black Friday. There we go.
There you go.
Black Friday special. I got Black Library on the mind. Black Friday special on our BuildPaintPlay hoodies. So you can check those out on the website. Link down below. So
they're all on sale. I think I knocked like $10 or $12 off each one. Nope. So if anybody wants any,
check them out.
Now is the time.
Awesome. Yep. Okay. Then.
I saw that slide.
Yeah, everybody saw that slide, except for Graham. I think Graham's head was down. We'll come back to it.
Yeah. Head down painting.
But Graham, so yeah, you mentioned so when did you start with Games Workshop in the studio? When was that?
That was back in the dim and distant days of 2000.
Right.
Yeah, I'd been working in Glasgow in the construction industry. I was working as a building surveyor up in Glasgow, thinking, this sucks, I hate this, I can't do this for the rest of my life. But the only thing I think I'm any good at is writing stories about wizards and goblins and spaceships. But who the hell's going to pay me for that? And then that very afternoon, I went down to the wee sandwich shop underneath our office, picked up that month's issue of White Dwarf, and there was a little quarter-page ad for a staff writer in the design studio. I was like, okay, well, I'll give it a shot. Worst they can say is no.
Yep.
Applied, a couple of interviews later, and then, February 2000, I was driving down to Nottingham to join the design studio.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so back in those days, was it you got to work on 40K and Warhammer and other projects?
And eventually Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Right.
I mean, yeah, when I first started, I think the idea was that I think they intended me more as a more journalistic style of writing, reporting on games days or interviewing the painters and the sculptors, how they'd come to do this model, why they settled on that paint scheme, talk to players at events and stuff like that. But I think they very quickly realized that was not my strong suit. I mean, I could do it, but I was much more interested in the lore, the storytelling, and the game design side of things. So I started off. I mean, it wasn't long after 3rd edition 40K had come out, so there was a real push to get more and more of the codex. The codex is out at that point were quite thin things because the rules had evolved quite considerably from 2nd to 3rd edition. So there was a rush to get the codexes out as quickly as possible, and that's why they were so thin back then, because it was just like get the rules out so people can play with their miniatures. So we did a lot of work on them. And the first book I worked fully properly on was Codex Tau, the 1st edition of that one, because the rules were in a good place. The how the army played was in a good place, but we didn't really know who the Tau were. Like what their character was, how they sounded, how they talked, how they interacted with other factions in the game. So I ended up writing a ton of color texts, some directly for the book, others just so we could all get a handle on it and share it about the design studio to the sculptors, the artists, and the other writers, so we could get so we could understand who they were, so that we could then write about them and stuff and draw them and stuff like that. So I worked on a lot of the 3rd edition 40k codexes. I worked on, I think it was 6th Ed Warhammer. It was one of the the book for that was the rule book for that was mostly finished. So I did a couple of passes through it to make sure all the rules on the different sections were agreeing with one another. So when it referred to a rule over here, that the two were faithfully reproduced, because a lot of changes obviously happened in the play testing and the design of the book, and it wasn't always updated in all the different places where those particular rules would appear. So it was a lot of detailed checking to make sure that was working. And we did I worked on the Empire Army book, Wood Elves and stuff. Basically, any codex or army book at some point in my time at the studio, I wrote something for it. And latterly, we were doing. I worked on Lord of the Rings. I worked on the Two Towers, with Alessio. And then we did a bunch of the supplements, like the Rise of the Necromancer and all that sort of stuff. So there wasn't a lot that went on or came out of the studio that I wasn't involved in some way or shape or form.
Right. Excellent. What would you say was so I guess your favorite project during that time? What was the thing that got you most excited? Or was it a series of the next thing?
It's like which of the dream projects that I'd wanted to work on ever since I was 13 was my favorite. All of them. I mean, like all of these things, it's the one you're working on right now was always the favorite, because we like myself, Phil, and Ant and the others were like, if we're working on a book and we don't feel like, damn, I want to collect this army, then we're doing something wrong. And you had to be invested in what you were creating, because if when folk just phone it in, you can tell whether it's a book, a song, piece of art, or game design, whatever. If you're just fill in the boxes just to get something out, it feels rote. If you don't love, as a creative, if you don't love what you're doing, I feel there's something missing in some of that secret sauce that goes into making something special is missing. And as a creative, and I'm sure you guys feel the same, if you're not putting something into it that feels like you've bled a little on the page or into the miniature, then it's like, well, what's the point? But there's a couple that to pick out a couple in detail, I would say working with Mark Gibbons on the Black Templars Codex was just tremendous fun, because Mark and I have known each other for years and years, and our sort of sensibilities for what we liked about the Black Templars was very in sync. So he would everything we did was building on what the other one suggested or liked. It was very yes and we some of the art he was coming up with, I would look at it and go, this is so cool, because then that would mean this and that could mean that, and he'd have one of these guys, and then he would go off and draw it, and it'd be like, that's even better than I imagined. So as a creative process, it was a joy to work with Mark on that. It was such fun, because he's one of my best friends. He lives out in California as well, so and he's coming up to the house next weekend, and we're gonna break bread and drink for a while. And the other one that really sticks out was the last book I worked on before I left the studio in 2006 or 7 was the Empire Army book for the 7th edition, I think, of 7th or 8th edition of Warhammer, because I got to work really, really close, you know, hand in hand every day with John Blanche. And, you know, John Blanche is a man who needs no introduction, you know, father of Warhammer imagery. And just hearing just all the stories behind the stories behind the stories of where the Empire came from, what it was, what the imagery meant, the symbolism, the artists that had informed him, and the history that I didn't know. You know, I thought I knew quite a lot of history of that period, but John was like a literal encyclopedia of this stuff, that, you know, what everything was riffing on, what historical moment that sounded too ridiculous to be history but actually happened. And we, you know, we worked a bunch of those things into the book. So yeah, working with John was an absolute, you know, and then another dream come true. So I think those two are the ones that really stick out. When we were doing the Two Towers, Alessio Cavatori and I were playtesting the scenario where the Uruk-hai breach the walls and come flying in through the culvert, and we're playing that in the studio. And unbeknownst to us at the time, that was the day that Peter Jackson was visiting the studio. So, you know, we're sitting there rolling dice and moving the models around the tabletop, and then we just kind of were aware of this. It feels like there's a lot of people behind us. What's going on? And sort of turn around and there's Peter Jackson and all his family there. And we're like, oh, yeah, what? Just when he came in, he sat and chatted with us for a bit. And he was, oh man, this, because the studio had built this gigantic model of Helm's Deep, and it was like 1-to-1 replica of the thing. And we were getting to play test on it, and Peter Jackson's chatting to me, and I'm sitting there sort of pinching myself, going, this can't be real. Clearly, I'm asleep at this point. This is weird. But yeah, those 3 books were ones that really stand out to me. Right.
Awesome. Would it's not the Peter Jackson visit notwithstanding. Obviously, the first 2 books that you talked about, so Black Templars collaborating with Mark as the artist, and then working on the Empire book, collaborating with John Blanche, again, artist, visual artist. How working on a project like the Two Towers, where you the background, the information is already written, and the art is already established by the films. Was there a very different sort of feeling? With those 2 aspects?
I mean, I love working with artists because they bring a very different sensibility to a project, and they're certainly in like a lot of the work I've done recently in video games, like with the concept artists. There is much storytellers as they are, you know, visual, you know, presenters of visual data sort of thing, you know, and just because I'd like to think that, you know, just given a blank bit of paper and some time, I can come up with cool shit and things that would be in a book or what it might look like. But there's nothing like seeing somebody just bring that to life in front of you, and then seeing how it, you know, works and moves, inspires you. So there's a real synergy of getting an artist to work with you when you're a writer. With Lord of the Rings, it was different because we were, like you say, a lot of the art had been art in the sense of what you'd seen in the movies, because obviously that was what our license was for, was the movies. But we had a ton of art with, you know, like John Howe and Alan Lee's stuff, so we could draw. You know, we couldn't obviously directly use that because Aragorn looked like Viggo Mortensen, didn't look like any of the art they'd done. You know, Frodo looked like Elijah Wood, those sort of things. But the fun with the Lord of the Rings stuff was, you know, just delving into the source material and seeing, you know, what we could extract from it in terms of, this would be a great scenario or that character there that isn't a well-known, but he'd be a great one to put into the scenario. And there'd be a back and forth, obviously, with New Line and Tolkien Ents about, like, can we use this character? And usually the answer was, are they in the film? Yes, sure, that's what your license is for. But there was a few, sort of creative interpretations where you could say, see that guy in the background, just blink and you miss him. That's him. That's the named character from the book. So yeah, let's make him and introduce them to the book. And they were protective of their worlds and their IP as is absolutely right and proper. But they did give us some wiggle room here and there when it was, if we could justify and be intentional with the decisions we were making. We weren't just trying to sneak stuff past them and so on. But yeah, sort of delving into the material and figuring out, like, what characters can we get? How could this be a scenario? That was fun. And I've read The Lord of the Rings more times than probably any other book in my life, apart from Weavor by Clive Barker. But I kept finding new things in the text. Every time we'd like, okay, let's look up this battle or that moment in the Dead Marshes or something, and there'd be something. It was rabbit hole central. You'd find one little reference and go, oh, what's that? I didn't remember that. And then you'd be breaking out Unfinished Tales, the Silmarillion, and going deep. And even if, like, say, we didn't have licenses for those sort of things and we couldn't use directly that stuff, but the background and the information there really informed the things that we could do with. It's like when you're doing your research for something as a writer, you don't want to overload the reader with the research. I've done all this research, now I'm going to choke you with it. But
right.
You knowing all that stuff really helps doing what you can do. And when the reader or the player or the painter feels like your shit, then that level of trust that they then give you is increased tenfold. So you have to build that trust by the person on the other end of the equation feeling that you know what you're talking about, that you're invested in it too, that you care about this thing, whatever it is, whether it's 40K, Warhammer, Lord of the Rings. So there was a lot more. I mean, there was obviously research for Warhammer and 40K because you wanted to go back to previous codexes, you wanted to go back to White Old, stuff that Bill King had written in a White Dwarf 10 years back and so on. And working with, at the time I was in the studio, it was like I was absolutely, fortunate beyond imagining to be working along with Andy Chambers, Gav Thorpe, Jez Goodwin, all Rick Priestley, and they knew all the old stories. They knew the primary texts that things had been based off. They knew some obscure sci-fi novel from the 30s that, was where this theme had come from and so on. So I was like devouring all of that stuff, and you could see, I get it now. I get what all this means, what it comes from, what it's to represent, and so on. And I always think that's something that's, really helped my writing, was to go back to that, the primary sources to understand, it's possible to read the books, but then you're building on. It sounds meaner than I am intending it, but it sounds like you're building off a copy of a copy of a copy, and right. it lacks some of that depth and connection to the original source material that everything was based from, whether it was Dune or Star Wars, Starship Troopers, or people's own imagination, so on. But I could talk to the people right there who had built this and developed it from the very first days. So I was hugely fortunate to be able to do that.
Did you find it? So for you, did you prefer working when, like, if you're working on something with John Blanche, if John Blanche is on board, like, you're good. You know what I mean? Like, he's the head of the studio. Like, you can kind of, it's like, yeah, we're just going to rubber stamp this. So if you're working on something, did you like that approach better, where, you were kind of unfettered, or do you like having the guardrails where, like, New Line's like, here's the sandbox, you can play in the sandbox, and you're like, okay, so I know where the boundaries are, like, that's cool. Do you like having the guardrails, or do you like Because I know for some people, I like we have a lot
yeah.
of friends who are writers. I know some prefer one way versus the other, but it's not always the same.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think it varies from project to project, and it varies from the time of the project you're in. You know, like at the very beginning of a project, it's like, you know, blue skies, everything is fair game, and then you know you distill it down into like, okay, what is the most crucial through line of this project? What is the theme we are exploring, and how do all of the myriad things that we've explored around about this, how do they then feed into that? How do they reinforce the theme or the whatever the thing is we're trying to explore or represent with this army, whether it's, you know, like Space Marines, the honor, the brotherhood of these of space knights, or whether it's the collective greater good of the Tau and so on. So I like, as a creative, I like to know where the boundaries are. So I like to know where they are so that I can either color within the lines or I can push them. You know, like I always try and push a little further than I think I'm going to be allowed to do, because that can sometimes lead to some really amazing special results. And even though, yes, it's technically outside the lines, when you, again, it's all about intentionality. When you show what you're trying to achieve there and why this works or why it's a good thing, it's often easier to convince people by having shown them it rather than saying, can I do this? And they'd go, no, beforehand. You know, if you, you know, it's the ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of way of thinking.
I think we all learned that at Games Workshop.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I think, you know, constraints are in some, I find them very freeing, because it gives me, I know the spaces that I can play in and I have free license to go there. And if I need to push a boundary, I can do it and then explain as to why it works. So it varies. So it depends on the project a lot of times, but you know, like with, to use an example, the novel Fulgrim has plenty of scenes and themes and motifs that pushed quite far beyond what we had normally seen in a Black Library publication in terms of the violence, the explorations of excess in all its forms through Slaanesh.
Yeah.
And I figured, okay, well, I'm going to write this book as I think it should be written, rather than asking if I can do a scene where this thing happened. And to Lindsay Priestley, who was the editor of that book, she was great. She was like, well, that bit there, I really we should probably cut that bit back a little bit. But most of the rest of it, she was like, yeah, I get it. This is what Slaanesh is, and if we don't honor that by its depiction, then we end up kind of doing a sort of fairly insipid version of it. So yeah, I always like to, you know, the scene the movie Apollo 13 has a great scene in it which I like, which, you know, riffs on this discussion at the moment, because there's the bit where their air filters in the spaceship are failing and they're going to choke to death. So the chief engineer comes into the office with the other engineers and he dumps a load of stuff on the table, and he says, this is what they've got up on the ship. Figure out how to make this square thing fit this round thing using only this. Go. And if you don't do it, they're all going to die. So those kind of it's one of the things I love when I come into like world building conversations and story conversations where you're building off past legacy, you know, pieces of text or art and so on. It's like, okay, these are the things we've got. How do we make this work? How do we make it feel like this is the only way it could have been? This is the perfect way you thread this needle using only these bits, because it makes everything feel like that it was always intended, that was, you know, that was the only direction the story could have gone, and it honors all the things that went before and sets up what is to come. So constraints are really good for that, because I find they really trigger that sort of creativity in me as a writer. You know, when I've got to make things work within a certain box, you have to be more inventive to tell stories that still work. I mean, and I remember Dan and I were both on a podcast at one point, and somebody was asking about, oh, do you not feel a bit boxed in by the whole tie-in universe and the IP holder, and we were like, absolutely not, because it really stimulates your inventiveness to tell new stories, find new characters, explore new stories and themes while staying within, the box. Because ultimately, you're working in a shared universe. So ultimately, all the toys, generally speaking, go back in the box at the end of it all. We're not going to write a story in the old world and then destroy it, because then you've screwed up everybody else's opportunity to play in that sandbox. I mean, ultimately, we did destroy the old world, but that's a whole different conversation.
There's something that I've said for quite a while about being able to hold up something like the way that Black Library handled the Horus Heresy and telling that story as a suggestion for anybody who has a large movie franchise who wants to do prequels, wants to go back in time and tell you how something that was super important was arrived at, I guess. There's a couple of franchises that haven't done it particularly well, but I always think that the way that you guys, that the team that wrote the Horus Heresy novel series really did a wonderful job, a beautiful job. It's one of those things, we all knew what the end result was going to be. Spoiler alert, Horus and the Emperor fight on the Vengeful Spirit.
That's not in Horus Heresy. That's in the Siege of Terra books.
Well, no, it's all part of it, though. The Siege of Terra is just like an extra.
It's a separate series, so to speak, but it's the continuity of it all. Yeah,
it's the end game of the Horus. Yeah. It's the end game of the Horus Heresy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a real great joint effort. Yeah. That was the thing. That was the thing with every time we all sat around the table. One of the first things that was always in everybody's mind was like, how can we bring something new to the table? How can we tell the story that but also the story that you don't know? All the things that you thought you knew of this story, there were, layers beneath that which, had you not known them beforehand, fine, you still enjoy the story as it was. But now that you do know them, hopefully there's a deeper appreciation of the, some of the forgotten figures or the as yet unknown figures who have gone on to really influence that story. Like the thing I always liked to tell was in the Bernard Cornwell novels, the Sharp series, because they were based on history. So like we knew the siege of Badajoz or Ciudad Rodrigo or how Talavera turned out. But Bernard Cornwell was really, really good at introducing new layers to those stories that you're like, wow, if it hadn't been for Sharp and the rifles, these guys wouldn't have got to the battlefield on time and it could have turned the whole battle on its head. So you would learn something new about the scenario that history had taught you by following the main characters of, the Sharp novels. So we always tried to figure, whenever we were telling one of these stories, was like, what are the bits in this story that still allow us to get to the tentpole moments that we know of from, games and box sets, but how can we add another wrinkle to that to tell you the story that you didn't know, but still informs what you do know? I think like I said, that was a huge team effort, man. Huge team effort.
You guys have done such a good job, like sort of shepherding the whole lore and the background. And I get so many people that come into our store and they're like, I want to get into Warhammer. And I'm like, oh, do you play? And probably, I would say more than half the time I get people who go, oh no, but I love the lore in the background. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, right. And that just speaks to, you and John and Dan and everybody doing their part to build that Great Wall of China that has all of these stories in it that have kind of grown that tapestry. And like the Sharp stuff always cracks me up. There was an interview that Dan Abnett did years ago, and some guy tried to, be like, I'm gonna get Dan, watch this. And he was like, what do you say about all the people that say that, the the Tanith First and Only books are just Bernard Cromwell series straps rifles in space. And Dan was like, "Oh, thank you so
That
much."
was the pitch.
Like I love
That was
that.
how I pitched it.
Yeah, I was like, that's what the story is. It's a fictional version of a take on Sharps rifles in space.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's amazing. But to your point, like there's such cool characters, and I think that if you go back to the early stuff, like I think the first Black Library book I ever read was, I think it's Space Wolf by William King might have been the first
Bill
one.
King. Yeah.
It's not, you know what I mean? Like that would be the first one I read. But you know, you and Dan and William King, and there's a double handful of other guys. But at the very beginning, Black Library was really small. There were like less than a dozen of you, and you guys did such a good job of like keeping that watchtower lit, so that more people were like, "Oh, this is cooler," and like we're gonna bring more guys on, and we're gonna add Aaron Dembski, and we're gonna add Guy Haley, and we're gonna add John French, and you just layered on all these people. But it's so like I play team sports, like I'm a hockey player, and as a team sports guy, the team is only as good as everybody. Like we all need to chip in. You guys have done such a good job of taking the idea of being a writer, which is typically a solo job, and turning it into a team sport. And I really appreciate that. Like,
we took
on behalf of
the model.
Like, thank you guys.
No, again, I will. The team thanks you because it was, you know, we took the model of like the TV writers' room because we would get together, you know, I don't know, maybe 4 times a year for you know, over a decade. You know, we would get together and start off with a kind of state of the nation kind of thing. Like, okay, where are we at in the big meta story? Who have we introduced? What arcs are in motion? Okay, how do we take them forward? What big beats in the story do we have to tell? You know, the Estevan 3, Estevan 5, you know, all the moments that we would, you know, have a board up and figure out, okay, where are we going in the next over the next year? What stories do we want to tell? Do we need to tell to maintain, you know, this of the consistency and the pace moving forward? Because we always imagined the story of the Horus Heresy is like a giant freeway with occasional on ramps, occasional off ramps, but the main thrust of the story was always moving towards the end of the highway, and it was perfectly acceptable now and again to take detours off to stories that maybe didn't advance the narrative, but there would always be one next down the pipe that did advance it, so people didn't feel that we were sort of, you know, noodling and just, you know, faffing about in some side backwater of cool thing that we enjoyed but wasn't moving the story forward. And we, you know, one of the sort of the jokes, I think it was Aaron said it at first, we were like, you know, because the first few novels were they were very successful and people really dug them, and we hadn't expected them. Well, not expected. We hadn't known how well they were going to be received. You know, we wrote them, we planned them out. We thought, yeah, these are good. We like these. We hope the readers do too. But they exploded. You know, the readers loved them. And every time we did a book, you know, I think it was Aaron was saying, like, nobody wants to be the guy who messes it up first. So we always had to make sure that, you know, you were always bringing just something extra to the table. I mean, you come to whenever you're writing a book, you know, we always gave it our all. I write a book and I want to tell a story that has a rip-roaring plot to it, characters that are memorable, themes that are interesting, and that hopefully leave you having felt something. You've been moved somehow. You've been emotionally touched by this book. But when you were doing a heresy one, you always wanted to just push yourself that little bit harder to make sure that it was special, because we did feel that you know, that the heresy books were, we tried each one to elevate it to a level where it could break free, so to speak, of the, you know, the tie-in label, which, you know, a while back was often seen as a, you know, a cheap, you know, cash-in sort of thing. It was just a way to just, you know, earn a few extra bucks, but nobody really cared about it. Yes, but we never felt like that. We always felt these we're going to tell these as best we can. These are going to be great stories, and you should be able to feel like within the first few pages, even if somebody had ripped the covers off and not told you what you were about to get, that within the first few pages of reading a heresy novel, you would know that's what you were reading, that the tone was different. It had that more sort of epic, legendary, grandiose feel to it. I mean, 40K has that, but it's a dirtier, ash-stained, bleak kind of vibe to it, whereas the heresy books, certainly in the early stages,
they started really hopeful. Like,
exactly. They had that feeling of we're on the brink of something. We and the amount of people I've spoken to who've read the books and in the first sort of early throes of it, even if they knew how all shook out by the end, they'd still be reading, going, maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe it won't go to shit. Maybe Horus will stay loyal. And that to me, that was a testament to the team's efforts to really bring that hopeful Age of Enlightenment kind of, we're on the brink of achieving everything that we've always wanted to achieve, and then just taking a sledgehammer to the foundations of that and watching it all crash down around them.
I give you guys full mark. I have a parallel comparison that I do a lot with Star Wars. And I know a lot of us here are Star Wars fans as well, because why wouldn't you be? So when you watch the original movies, so episodes 4, 5, and 6, the whole idea is you're like, who's this Darth Vader guy? Like, he seems crazy. Like, where did he come from? And then you're like, oh damn! And the second you're like, it's Luke's dad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the whole surprise of who he is part of the story. So when they made the prequel movies, and you were like, who's that little kid? And you're like, that's Anakin Skywalker. And you're like, oh my god, that's Luke's dad. So, but they did such a bad job of like explaining him in the movies that you're like, everyone was like, when does he turn into Darth Vader? Because Darth Vader's super cool. Like, he's like the coolest bad guy. You're like, I don't want to watch this anymore. You and Dan and Ben in the original trilogy did such a good job of coming together. And I'm with you. Like, I went into that knowing, like, I'm a loyalist player. Like, I'm a Blood Angel. Like, that's my jam. So I extra don't like Horus. So going into that series, I was like, I'm not going to like this. And I started reading it. And by the end of the halfway through the first book, you're like, Horus is awesome. You're like,
well, that's a major
you guys
point.
did such a good job of like,
we're discussing this right up front. Was that it's easy when you're writing 40K novels or codexes and stuff like that. Horus is a byword for treachery, for betrayal, for evil, and so on. And you have to remember that but beforehand, he was the Emperor's best and brightest son. He was the war master. He was given command of the Imperium's armies because he was the best. He was the most suited for it. He was the one who people would have followed into hell, and some of them did. But we had to fall in love with Horus in the first book so that you would understand why people followed him into treachery. You had to love him. You had to feel that, I get it. I get why this guy was made War Master. I get why he was the Emperor's favored son. So it would feel then that his fall would be extra, the tragedy of that fall would be a knife to the heart. Yep. And I remember reading the first manuscript of Horus Rising when Dan had finished the book and read it. And I was reading it, and I had a few thoughts at first. And the first one was like, "Oh, Dan, what have you done? You've got the Space Marines all wrong. They don't speak like this. They're just too brotherly. In the 40K, they're all like, oh wait, yeah, I get it, because they're not the Space Marines of 40K. These are the ones who were the right guys for the right time, and the guys who they become in 40K is after all this goes to hell, and they have to forgo all of that brotherhood, that camaraderie, that humor that they had before, and that love for one another is gone in terms of how it was represented in 30K. And so once that sort of clicked, I was like, oh, you clever bugger, you clever man. Okay. And then I was, you're reading it, and Horus was just coming off the page as this clever, funny, charismatic genius. You felt that in every page of the book that he was in. And I loved him. I was like, at the end of the book, and I felt so sorry for him at the end of the first book when the negotiations with the Interrex go to hell and everything's in flames. and Loken sees Horus at the end of it, sort of doing the whole, Father, why have you left me like this kind of thing, and I felt desperately sorry for him. And then when I came to do False God, writing that, going, oh no, I've got to turn him evil. I've got to do the bad thing, which was horrible because I'd fallen in love with him at this point in the story, and I don't want.
Dan's like, I made this cool guy. Here you go, Graham.
Yeah, here you go. Like, just take him into the dirt and kick him in the face a few times. I don't want to do it. So, yeah, I mean that was the fantastic. I mean, Dan had to set the tone for the whole thing up in one book, and he did it masterfully. To the point where even I didn't want to turn Horus bad. I'm writing the story. Maybe could I just do it so that it finishes at the end of my book, and that's it. Everybody lived happily ever after.
Little Horus. I'm just gonna make it's Little Horus's fault.
Yeah, see that did come up at one point in the discussions. Like maybe it was a mistaken identity thing, that the real Horus died and Little Horus took his place, and the real Horus is going to come back in the end times. Going surprise. But no, that was. But so yeah,
we've got some questions. We got some questions in the chat. My business partner Ben wants to know: do you have a favorite Horus Heresy character?
I mean, Horus has got to be right up there because writing him in False Gods, and then coming back to him in Vengeful Spirit, because he'd not been sidelined at that point, but a lot of other characters and Primarchs had taken the stage at that point, and Horus had kind of been a little bit, he was in the back seat at this point because all the other moments of the story that needed to be told to get us to the right place were in play at that point. So writing Horus is always great fun, but I gotta say it's got to be Magnus. It's got to be Magnus the Red, because I've written so much about him that just taking him on the journey that he's gone on, and his arc from first writing him to where I ended my telling of him up to this point was just brilliant fun. I loved writing Magnus, and the Thousand Sons were just tremendous, but Magnus was a great character to write.
I that's one of my favorite Heresy books is Thousand Sons. I thought he did such a good job kind of explaining them, and I loved all the different like sort of schools of magic. Like you've got like the Corvidae, and like they can all do different stuff. I thought that was brilliant. I think one of the coolest parts in the Heresy has got to be when Magnus is like, you know what, I've achieved this. Horus is going to turn evil, but he hasn't yet. We can stop this. It's cool. I'm going to use space magic. I'm just going to go tell Dad I was right, and he can thank me because I did a great job. And then he like smashes through all the wards, and he kind of looks around and he's like, oh no, I did the wrong thing. And his dad's super
I have
mad.
become the thing. Yes.
And his dad like hangs up on him, so he gets like cast out. I was like, oh no, this is the worst. That whole
Thousand Sons was one where I really wanted to do something. I didn't want them just to be in a different color scheme, but they just yell for the Emperor, and that was it. I wanted to, give them a culture all of their own. So we had, the various fellowships that specialized in the different forms of, psychic magic, and really incorporate that into their fighting styles, so that it wasn't just we're all Space Marines and some of us can use these different powers. It's like no, the Corvidae are used to foretell enemy movements, and these guys are over here ready to shoot them down, or the Telekines are there to draw people out of cover, while the Anatheniums you predict other things. So it felt like it was. I wanted to make sure that the psychic powers were, like woven into how the Thousand Sons fought from the very beginning of the book, and it gave them. It felt that they had their own character as Thousand Sons as much as Space Marines. So that was very important for me at the beginning, and that's one of those books. Like whenever you start a novel, I always certainly have a number of kind of aims that I think that by the time of this book's finished, I want to have hopefully achieved this, and this, or represented that, and that. And of all the books I've written, that's probably the one I feel I came closest to getting all the things or doing the things I wanted to do with this book, and feeling like I'd achieved most of them. I mean, you never get all of them because that would be weird. But you try and achieve as much as you can, because the books mutate along the way. No book I've ever written has ended up exactly as the outline suggested it was going to go, and that's fine. That's understood. And a lot of the best ideas you have in a story come as you're in the midst of it. Once you start to really get a feel for how these characters move and talk and interact, and how the relationships between them change in ways that you didn't expect or hadn't planned on. But like everything, once you're in the guts of doing a thing, it starts to sort of really come to life around you, and you can see the bits that actually that idea I had is not going to work, or this one's much better if he does that instead. And seeing the ripple effects of that go through the book is I love that. It's fascinating to me, because it's not to get too waffy, but it's like the book starts. It's something you're breathing life into it, and that life is messy, and it doesn't always do what you want it to do, and you just got to roll with it. You explore things that come up and go down rabbit holes of plot or character or dialogue that may not be what you expected or planned at all. And even if it doesn't work, it's fine. You've explored it. You've learned something new about that character. You've learned a description or a line that might be really cool that I can use elsewhere, and so on. So I always like to sort of figure the shape of something, a scene or a conversation as I'm going. I know kind of where I want it to end. By the end of this scene or this chapter, I know that this character has to learn that, this person is going to be dead, or they've discovered that, whatever it is. But how they get there, I like to leave kind of open. It's almost like an ad lib, improvisational scene. You're giving these characters, here's where you are, here's what we need to get out of this by the end. Go, figure it out. And it is literally like a bit of clay. You're shaping it as you go along, and you think, oh, I need an extra bit here, or no, that bit's too much. And then once you've got the whole thing, the scene, you can reshape it. And that period of discovery of a scene of a book is just, I love that. I love that part of it.
There's two things that have come up in the chat. First one is just quickly, Jez was asking, were the Corvidae in that taken from Mithraism?
Not directly, no. I mean, because I was figuring, okay, what disciplines would they likely have in terms of their psychic abilities, and what animal, what phrase can I use that would represent that? And like in mythology, ravens are often thought of as birds of prophecy. They were Odin's birds and so on. So ravens, Corvidae, that just felt like a natural fit. And the Pavoni came out of, that's the Latin for peacock, and they were the ones who essentially the shapeshifters, the ones who could make themselves, they could, they were like fleshmancers. They could boil blood, change the shape of their face. They were the pretty boys, essentially, of the Legion. So that felt like, again, a nice sort of linked from the name to who they were and what they did. And Pyres, obviously, pretty obvious with, fire and stuff like that. So a lot of it was just like, what would be a cool name that I could use in the book? Because a lot of the naming things is hard, and you want to try and have something that people will remember. They don't have to keep going back to like a glossary to think, oh yeah, that's what that means. But then also something that looks good on the page and reads nice and easily. It's the same like when you're naming a character, having a character's name that's so long or full of trippy, consonants and vowels and so on, makes it hard for the reader to remember them. And anytime they get pulled out of the story by like, who's this guy again? You've lost a little bit of their attention and their investment in what's happening in the moment. So, it's that balance between finding a name that's cool and works on the page, that the player remembers, has a thematic resonance to who they are sometimes, and just looks cool and sounds cool. Yeah. And these are all like, if you're inventing a character, I mean, a lot of the ones we used, were already in existence.
Already existed, yeah.
Yeah.
I think going through and naming folks like Garfield Loken, new character, Soul Tarvitz, new character, that 2-syllable last name is a great, nice and snappy.
Because people that you're going to be talking about this character, you're going to be using their name, or players are going to be talking to them. And if you're lucky, it might be in a model. So, having some like multi-hyphenate syllable name for a character is probably not ideal.
Yeah, absolutely. But the other one there is something that's a little bit deeper, and I've been involved in a bunch of discussions with it, and I've watched a few videos where people are talking about it. But the concept of canon in Games Workshop's worlds, how that canon as applies to other story sort of franchises. What is canon, and how does that work with Games Workshop? How do you see that working with Games Workshop?
Again, I mean, I have my own opinions on it, but I don't speak for Games Workshop.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
The way I look at it is, if we're willing to put it in print, then it should be considered, if not like completely ironclad and never changeable, then you should stand behind it. Because we all occasionally make a mistake here and there. You'll name a character and it's like, oh no, they weren't around at that point, or whatever it was. And sure, if you do, mea culpa, I got it wrong, whatever. But if you put it in print, I feel in my own work, I mean, I can't speak for everybody else's because different people have different views on it, then we should stand behind it. But then, I know Mark Gascoigne back in the day had a lengthy speech about 40K, about nothing being canon, and it's like, that works if you're sort of in world, because like people in the Imperium and 40K, they have no notion of what really happened or what didn't happen. I mean, there's legends of a time 10,000 years ago, if they've even heard of that. Abaddon is the guy that's running around destroying Cadia. Is that the same one from 10,000 years ago? Surely not. He'd be dead by now. Is that a Dread Pirate Roberts thing? I mean, these are all the things that somebody in the real world of 40K might think. And that's absolutely fine. That you should blur the lines that way. I mean, we exist in a world today where we don't know what happened way less time ago than the Imperium is dealing with. And we still don't know a lot of those things. And we have access to science that we do understand and all that sort of stuff. Whereas, in 40K, it's not like that at all. Which is a different thing from saying like what happens in your codex and what happens in your book is or is not canon. We always looked at it as we always tried to honor what had gone before. And if we could use it, we absolutely would, and we would stand by it. And if we couldn't, then we would find a way to riff on why it was legendary or why it was thought of in that particular way. And one of the discussions we had early on about the Horus Heresy books was that and certainly with things like Prospero Burns and 1,000 Suns, was almost like these are like each legion's almost like their version of the story. Because when we were doing those two books in particular, Dan and I were in a conversation either every day or every other day, just riffing ideas back and forth. And then we came up with this conceit where for a lot of the books, yes, there would absolutely be moments of crossover and points of points of things that were identical within each one. So you could say, yes, that likely happened, but we also engineered some deliberate contradictions. We wanted points where it would not agree, even though they're describing the same thing. Moments where you would go, but in this book it said that, and in this book it said that, and they weren't mistakes. They were deliberately engineered, because certainly in Prospero Burns, it's Casper's retelling of events almost, and it's kind of what Space Wolves want him to know and want him to hear and want him to transmit as their story. Whereas the 1,000 Suns, it was very much, well, these are meticulous record keepers, but they also know at this point, maybe we did do something wrong, but we control history. We control the texts. So maybe we can, tell our story that favors us in a better light. But those two books in particular were very much engineered to sort of mess with that notion of what is objective truth, because there has to be almost like a central campfire that is recognized as this is the truth. And if we can all agree on that, then everything that flows from that is based on truth. But we wanted to have moments in the story that, hey, maybe the campfire doesn't exist, maybe it never did, or maybe it's burning over there, or maybe it's burning over here. Who knows? So you get to play with that notion of what is objective truth.
Sure.
I feel like there's a parallel in that too, which is, and this is throughout the Horus Heresy, and even somewhat in the Siege of Terror books, but like the campfire idea of the truth is absolutely a real thing. But then there's the flip side of that, which is perception is reality. So to your point, if I'm farther away, it's a really tiny fire, and if I'm standing right next to it, it's a huge raging bonfire. Mm-hmm. So that was the cool thing about those two books, because they played off each other so well. You had like that didact sort of take where this is what I see versus this is what I see. I guess on a related question, did you and Dan and Ben, when you guys sat down to do the original trilogy, did you guys have, I guess, any idea what you guys were getting into? And was there any concept as to like, how many books are we going to do, and how big is this going to be, and like what's the worst case scenario, what's the best case scenario?
Yeah, there absolutely was, and we got it completely wrong. Our initial concept,
4 books, that's it. 4 books were done.
Yeah, it was like, okay, we'll do an opening trilogy, a closing trilogy, and I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 books in between. Yeah, that sounds like it's likely. But then, with the massive popularity of the opening trilogy, it very quickly became apparent that there was a huge appetite for this setting and these characters. And we absolutely made essentially like a blood oath, a pact at the beginning that as long as we still love writing these books and people continue to enjoy reading them, let's tell the story as expansively as it requires and as we want. Let's not put a fixed number on it, because that would have felt a little reductive at that point when we didn't know all the stories that there were to tell. Because at the beginning we sort of mapped out, okay, well, we need Istvan and we need this and we need then the Siege of Terra, blah blah blah. But as the stories expanded in the telling and the cast of characters grew and the arcs that we were building out grew ever more lengthy or complex and what have you, then absolutely at that point we're like, this is no way going to be 8 books. Let's just run with it. And we'll Library were fantastic because they gave us all the runway we needed when we were doing this and chatting away to the editor, to Mark, to Nick, saying, we don't think this is going to be 8 books. This could be a lot more. And they were and you could not have asked for a better partner in publishing, because they were like, guys, go for it. Tell the story as it needs to be told. And, we'll bring in more writers. We'll bring in extra bodies. We will double the number of whippings you get to make sure everything keeps going. Our initial thoughts were totally wrong, but I'm glad of that.
That's an incredible amount of trust to be given.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it goes back to your original point that if you've done the research and you're respectful of what has come before, you're going to gain that trust.
Yeah,
they were
absolutely.
Like,
trust is the biggest. Pile of rope. Yeah, trust between the reader. Like I say, it goes back to that earlier point we were talking about, Dave, where if the readers trust that you are invested in this as much as they are, they'll go with you. They will come with you. If you build it, they will come. And we were very aware of that trust that we had built up, and that we absolutely did not want to disappoint people. We wanted to earn that trust. Every book that we wrote, every meeting we had was about how can we tell the story and that will elevate it, that will get people, because when each Heresy novel was released, it was an event. The new Horus Heresy novel was a big event for Workshop. We would do the signing sessions, blog tours, interviews, videos. We'd go around the stores signing. It was an event. So we wanted to make sure that we earned that every time, and that we didn't take any kind of trust granted to us by Black Library, by the readers, for granted. You know, it was a case of like every time, bring your A game and then some.
Yeah, awesome. I had I did. I was gonna say I did have a whole bunch of slides with covers of a whole bunch of books that you've written, but just looking at the time, yeah.
Yes, I ramble and give you.
Oh no.
10-minute answers when probably 2 words would do.
Well, as I said, it's like how do we fit? We're trying
20
to
years of writing and creation into 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. Exactly. But just quickly, I will say Malev has joined us. Hello, Malev. He said if I could read, I would probably read the Horus Heresy novels. I'm going to say that they're on Audible. You can go and check them out on Audible.
Yeah, there's audiobooks.
Just start with the first 3. If you like it, keep going. Like
Coronation Street in space.
But
nice.
Let's skip ahead to I think it was 2015. 2015. It might have been.
Riot. Yeah, when he went to Riot.
Oh, yeah, it's 2015. I came to the States. Yeah.
So left workshop 2007. You're still writing for Black Library through to.
Yep, I was 10 years a freelancer, give or take, and then Riot reached it because Ant Reynolds, pardon me, he was already working for them at this point, and he reached out to me saying, "Look, hey, Riot are looking to build their worlds, make them more cohesive, because at the time, the world of Runeterra felt a lot like a bunch of theme parks stuck together. You know, you had Roman world and steampunk land and Viking town and Egyptville, and none of them worked together. They were all literally like fenced off, and there was nothing ever went between them. And you're like, well, that's not how worlds work. You know, there's bleed between those worlds, conflict, and so on. So they were looking to bring writers over to help flesh out the world and build it in a way that, again, was respectful of what had been before, where possible, and built it up in a realistically fantastical way that would hopefully eventually be robust enough an IP to support longer form storytelling, you know, like films, TVs, books, and so on. And that was the first like 4 years or so when I was at Riot. That was my job. You know, I was working in the world building team with a whole bunch of with other writers, with some amazingly talented artists, and we went through each of the different factions in Runeterra and, you know, kind of rebuilt it from the ground up in a way that made it feel more realistic while still maintaining that sort of punky fantasy vibe to it.
You're really going through and helping to create, I guess, helping to build the cultures from each of those places.
Yes.
That would have given rise to the characters that they had. So
we'd go back and figure like what was their history, what's their, you know, it's all the things you do when you're doing world building. Is like, what's the place they live in? You know, because everything that follows from that becomes like, okay, well, what is it? Hot? Is it cold? Because that'll inform the creatures they hunt, the clothes they wear, the structures they build, the weapons they use, the kinds of gods they might have, the coinage or the currency or trade that they might or might not have. So you'd go back to the very beginning and build it from scratch, taking in what had been done before. I mean, a lot of the early stuff that Riot had done was, it was quite derivative in some places in terms of what it was obviously borrowing from, or where some of the VO lines from the champs had come from. And, you know, we were like, we can't do this. You know, this is like half of this champ's lines are Han Solo's lines from Star Wars or something. So you like, if we're going to be a global IP, we can't do that. So I mean, the champ team were great and spent a lot of time recrafting all the voiceover work. The art team did a great work of updating a lot of the, you know, very old school style of art, especially in the female characters. And we spent a lot of time trying to make the worlds feel real, like lived in, that they were consequential in what happened in one realm or kingdom probably would have an effect on another one as they knew about it and reacted to it and so on. So it felt like a living, breathing world. And that was, it wasn't just world building. We were there to build like the DNA of, say, Demacia or Noxus or the Freljord. And then, we would present them to the company at large so that we weren't being too prescriptive, but we gave people the DNA so that they could exercise their own creativity and their own autonomy to build things within the world, but they still would feel cohesive around the company because there was a multitude of teams doing many different projects. So having everybody have access to that sort of, the fundamentals of a culture that they could then build on and still have it feel like, Team A and Team B are doing something and they've never talked to one another, but because they've got the right tools to make the thing, it still feels like they're building in the same world. So that was, the job of us and the other teams who then went on to build stuff, like Champ Team, the music team, they all did, versions of different cultures and characters within the world, but they all felt like they belonged in the same world. And that was, a testament to everybody working together to make that happen.
Yeah, Ben wants to know, was that part of the whole Piltover Zon kind of scene we see in Arcane? Both nations felt more like steampunk land and mad bad science land before that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Christian and Alex were, they co-created Arcane based on, what was there beforehand, what we were doing, and they took their own, they put their own, spin and flavor into the world. Because we tried to make it so that, you would understand why both existed side by side, and that one had the effect on the other, and it felt again like a living, breathing place where there was consequential actions in one place that would be felt in the other. But yeah, they were very obviously influenced by sort of steampunk and that Mad Maxian Chemtech kind of vibe. Yeah.
So that was a quick leap there into we hadn't really announced, but Arcane. So second season is just launched.
Last Saturday, the final 3 episodes of season 2 dropped.
Right. So and how exciting was it to see this?
That was, I have to say that, episode 4 when it dropped, and we were all sat in our front room. We've got the projector set up, and I was like, if anyone touches that skip intro button, you're going to die. So yeah, we watched it, and the family gave, when this screen came up, big cheer, and I was like, yes. It was phenomenal because that was an absolutely dream project to work on. It was a murderer's row of talent in the writer's room, and I learned a ton from these guys because a lot of people there were seasoned like TV and feature screenwriters. So I learned a lot from them, and we all worked really well together. And the people, I'm still friends with those folks, and it was years ago we wrote these episodes, because it takes a long time to get to the screen. So yeah, brilliant project to work on, and just I got very emotional watching that, my episode, to see how it, the words on the page had translated into the screen.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
What's what are you currently working on now?
Well, at the moment, I'm in day to day. I work for. I left Riot in January this year, and I'm now working for a company called People Can Fly. So I'm working on a game for them, of which I can say nothing for the moment. Writing wise, I'd like to say in the January to August time, I was picking up a lot of freelance work, and one part of that was doing some stuff for Thomas Pernin and Mike Francina's Trench Crusade. So yeah, doing some getting into the trenches of demon-infested World War One.
I feel like you'll be fine. That seems like that right up your alley.
It doesn't feel like a huge leap, particularly. God Emperor, God-feeding.
You were like, it's either that or I start my trilogy of French poetry. So
no, there's enough similarities that I can feel at home there, but the specificity of the IP is, Thomas and Mike have done an amazing job. I'm really bringing that to life with, I mean, Thomas is a gold mine of historical knowledge, and you can see that just coming off the pages of the lore primers and the army list and so on. And like Thomas was the guy who first hired me at Games Workshop. He was my first boss at Games Workshop. So it's the circle of life has come around again. So yeah, he was the head of Warhammer at the time when I joined the studio, and he was my boss. And he was only there for I think about a year and a half before he left. But again, an incredibly intelligent, cool guy, and I learned a metric shit ton from him about writing, about game design, about what you're trying to communicate and how. So yeah, it was great to actually, reconnect with him, and it was like no time at all had passed. We were just getting in there to the nitty gritty of the stories and stuff like that. So that's and I've been again, a lot of the connections and people I spoke to and worked with over the summer, maintaining those. So like the guys at Six More Vodka, I've been chatting to them about some of their developments in the Arcane things. So Shadowborn, I was for a while, a few years back, I was going to do some work with them in their Oathsworn game, but that, as it turned out, never panned out. But we're chatting now, so we'll see what comes of that.
Oh, fantastic. I think
lots keeping me busy.
Yeah, that's good. I think hopefully next year in our season 6, we'll be able to get Mike Francina on to
that'd be awesome.
Chat about Trench Crusade once
once everything starts coming out and people are getting their models and their books and so on. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I think that would be super cool. I've got a whole bunch on my desk here, but I'm going to throw this model up here.
Oh, nice.
So this one is a it's a fan sculpt, and you've been messing around with. I feel terrible because I can't remember who did it, but I'll find it and I'll post it in the Facebook group. But it's just been messing around with digital sculpting and finally sculpting the first miniature, and they decided to do this is a Trench Aviarist. So
he looks like
these birds in the back.
He looks like one of the squires from Monty Python's Holy Grail, the guys that are carrying all their stuff.
With the coconuts.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, on the back,
I'd love to see a Trench Crusade cavalry unit, which is just guys with coconuts.
Exactly. But nice. It's
is that a messenger pigeon guy?
Yeah, messenger pigeon.
Are those European swallows or?
I'm not sure. They might be. But my favorite thing is
like a sub-Saharan African one by the wingspan.
His helmet there.
What?
Yeah, it's a tilting helmet with like ears on it.
Yeah, so that I'm sure that the messenger pigeons can fly up next to him and whisper the secrets.
Whisper their secrets.
Yeah. But cool. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited to read the story. It's be great.
Speckled Jim, nice Blackadder reference there.
Yeah. Fantastic.
You shot my Speckled Jim.
Hank Headley from Adepticon has joined us saying Adepticon has had a lot of great special guests over the last 20 plus years, but none better than 2 times guest Graham McNeill.
Yeah, Adepticon has always been. I mean, I went to Gen Con last year, which was great fun, but Adepticon's always been my favorite of the American cons. Yeah, I've always had a great time there.
We say it all the time. We're huge fans of Hank and his work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Want to take a look at some minis, Graham?
Yeah, I want to check out some
Let's
of
do
the.
it, man. Let's do it.
Cool. Okay, so this part of the show we always we take a look at miniatures from our Facebook group, the BuildPaintPlay community Facebook group, and we get to check out the wide variety of stuff that's been painted. Everybody is always presenting their top stuff, their most recent work, and we will jump in that now. Right button. There we go. So first up, we've got Adam Weller.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
Because I saw that, I
Everyone's
saw that
favorite
slide
demon.
come up earlier and thought, oh, there's some artwork there of Hellboy. Now I see, oh, it's a miniature. Jesus.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's great.
yeah, Adam's done an awesome job on the volumes there, and those muscles working beautifully. But yeah,
I always feel like if you're gonna do a Hellboy bust,
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to do like a cut because like, you always want to have his like his right hand of doom.
Giant
Like
fist.
that's inherently Hellboy.
Yeah. I know. I'd be. I'd love to see this version like with his horns grown. And,
Oh yeah.
With
Flame.
flame in between
You know,
them.
the spectral flaming crown.
yeah. That would be fantastic.
You just make sure when you display it, you like pour some lighter fluid on it and just actually light it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
You're like, I can only show this off once.
Something. Speaking of that, just quickly. Let me. There we go. So, at Monte San Savino, the big miniature show that was 2 weeks ago in Monte San Savino, Eric Swinson.
Someone lit a model on fire.
Yeah, Eric Swinson did a collaboration with I can't remember his name, but a sculptor. The sculptor has a range of models that are basically like candles, character candles, a little bit like the candlestick from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
So, so Eric got him to cast one of the models, one of the characters in wax.
In wax.
And then he painted the model like Eric. So Eric put all of his sort of massive amount of skills into painting this character, and then they put him on display at the show, and then lit the candle.
Lit it. Very cool.
And so over the course of the candle was lit, I think like half the model was melted away.
Oh
and
my God.
but he did it as very much as a kind of, we all paint a lot of models. This is just another model kind of. Don't take any of it too seriously.
Scott says Lucas Zaba.
Lucas Zaba, there we go. Thank you very much, Scott. But yeah, as a sort of transient piece, that was fantastic.
That's very cool, yeah.
And to follow up on that, sort of the artistry of that sort of thing, rather than taking photos of it beforehand and posting on social media or taking photos of it at the show, Eric he did an Instagram story. Like, oh, let's quickly film it being lit. Check it out. And knowing that 24 hours later, that story would be gone.
It's gone.
I'll go back and watch stories.
Yeah, it's very transient as its beauty.
Yeah. So, but anyway, fantastic. Get back to the minis.
So excellent work, Adam. We're looking forward to seeing him done. He looks awesome.
Yeah. Alan Borthwick, who is in the chat, hopefully.
Working on more Stargrave dudes.
Yeah, I think this is for his Cyberpunk Red.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I think
It's one of the two. It's always either Cyberpunk Red or Stargrave. It's
yeah.
You could use these in either.
Fun. You could. You could actually. Absolutely. But no, I love these. I love that. There we go. A Bucky for my Tiger Claws. But yeah, I love that sort of Oni mask kind of thing they've got going on.
Nothing says gang member like an Oni mask with a baseball hat.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Work boots and denims as well. Nice.
Yeah. But lovely work there, Alan. Great. It's an interesting collection of models here. I know Alan is in the chat there, so you can let us know what these were for. Initially, I thought they were for Stargrave, but it was like, I don't think so. Not enough sci-fi stuff going on there. But
that's some pretty crazy variety.
Yeah, I could see them in Death May Die.
Right. Yep. Okay. Radio. Yeah. His 3 vampire hunters and a mob boss. So What was on the right there? But
I
Candle
was gonna
Guy.
say three vampire hunters and like Daryl off of his couch, like just like some guy in a polo who like got off the couch.
I gotta
Oh,
say,
hunting vampires.
in that pose, he sort of reminded me of Christopher Walken. But looking great there, Alan. And Alan also painted up for his Stargrave table.
Nice.
It's an awesome selection of cacti. Yeah, looking cool. I love that green. It's so rich.
Yeah, it's great.
Beautiful work there, Alan. Just says they are lovely. Nice one. Amos is painting up some more Necrons.
To add to that squad.
Oh, nice. Some Scorpex.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Those guys are great.
These guys always like scare the shit out of me up.
Oh yeah, they're nasty on the tabletop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and my Necrons never go out on the table without Scorpex and the Scorpec Lord.
Yeah.
Because he is a beast.
Yeah, last
He
week
gets
he
to
showed
charge in.
Yeah. Awesome. But no, beautiful work there, Amos. They're looking very cool. That green working really well. Nice one. Next up, Bing has been painting up some Night Lords.
Night Lords, yeah.
Have you ever had the chance to write about some Night Lords?
I haven't yet. I mean, I think Aaron did such a great job with them in his trilogy. It's like, dude, I mean, what am I gonna add to this?
Yeah. And two more there. I think from the from that like a story perspective, we were talking before about the difference between 30K Marines and 40K Marines, and having those guys in Aaron having those guys in the stories that were 30K Night Lords in the 40K universe kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that was something fun. If it could happen organically, it was fun to do. Like some of the second novel I wrote, Storm of Iron, has a bunch of characters who remember being in the Siege of Terra, who were there back in the day, sort of thing. So again, when we came to write some of those stories, I was like, well, I've literally said in an earlier book that they were there, so it'd be crazy not to include them. Their absence would be more noticeable not to include them than it wouldn't feel like fan service to myself putting them in the book. It felt natural that they were, because Forex, for example, was the first captain, so he should absolutely be there. Right. So if you could find ways to organically do that, which Aaron did with his ones, it's just again, it's that connectivity that we were talking about earlier on between things having consequence from one space to another.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And Bing's also done a fantastic job painting these.
Yeah,
so
he's in midnight clad.
Yeah. Awesome work. Thanks, Bing.
I like those guys.
Excellent. Chris Gorka.
Oh, cool.
Chris Gorka loves lightsabers.
Loving the lightsabers for sure.
Who doesn't?
I wanted to get a nice selection of the colors there. But yeah, Chris has done some beautiful work on those. I love the particularly the I guess the tabard here.
Dave, do you know who they are?
Well, I know these two. So this is Ben Kenobi,
Mace Windu.
Yep.
Mace Windu, and I do not know this character.
Ben, if Ben's still in the chat, he'll know her. I always forget her name. She's from the cartoon, so I don't.
From the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Right. But no,
I don't know her.
They look fantastic, Chris. Beautiful work. And Chris has also got, I think there are 2 or 3 more in this post, so you can go and check out a couple of other excellent Jedi. Dave Powles. Dave Powles has finished painting up the Sisters Warband from Bombshell Minis.
They look great. The dimensionality, like the way he's done the colors, the way he's like layered it up, I really like that. The cloth, like it looks like cloth.
Yeah. The green cloth looks like fabric, and the red rope looks like rope.
Yeah, he's done a beautiful job there.
Yeah.
I think the auger is very... Luminara Undili. It says Josh was the name of that the previous Jedi.
Yeah, and she comes with her apprentice, who's a different sculpt.
Right. But nice one, thanks, Josh. Yeah. Excellent. What do you win? You win our approval.
Your undying approval and a round of applause.
Excellent.
And 3 ultra points.
Yes, 3 ultra points. There you go. Oh, first time on the show, 3 ultra points. Excellent.
They've been handed out.
But Dave also sent us this photo, or posted this photo of his whole warband.
Yeah, these are great.
Terrain.
Nice, yeah.
He showed off the girl with the hammer last week in the back.
Yeah.
These are super cool.
But yeah, well, awesome work there, Dave. Always great to see you complete the project. Jonathan Palomo says Barris Offie is a Padawan. Excellent.
Like I said, 2 characters I don't know the names of. I was like,
See, that reads like somebody who was naming that character who was sitting in a coffee shop. And they're like looking around them. There's a barista, and I'm having a coffee. Barris Offie.
Yeah, Barris Offie. Exactly. Fantastic. Greg Rothhauser has been showing off his revilers.
Yeah, these are great.
And we had a conversation last week or the week before about different ways to twist color schemes, I guess, when you're getting to veterans or armored suits that have a different shape, or different shapes, different silhouette. And I think Greg's done a great job. All made great choices there.
Yeah,
I like the nod.
Nice strong colors.
I like the nod to the Raven Guard too, with the dark shoulder pad with the 19 on it.
And the 19 on it.
On the back of the fist, he has the Raven Guard logo.
Right.
The chapter icon. So that's pretty rad.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Definitely. And I like how he's used not just the black on the storm bottle casing and the shoulder pad, but also
the light housing,
the sensor. Yeah. So it can create a nice sort of triangle there.
Dude, those new Terminators are just awesome. They're such a great model. Like the sizing is finally right. They're finally the right scale, and they look forbidding. Like they're so massive. You're like, that thing's gonna walk up and flip over your tank.
Yeah, I just finished painting the Terminators from the Leviathan box, and they were all together. It was great. I enjoyed painting them. It was then when I put them down next to the other, even for the Primaris ones, it's like, oh wow, yeah, these are way bigger. These are cool.
Yeah, they're huge.
They're properly scaled here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great, beautiful work there, Greg. And I will point out that the chapter badge there is freehand.
I was going to say that's got to be freehand, surely.
Yeah. And Greg also shared a bit of a throwback. He said he painted this one a few years ago.
Nice.
Nice.
Beautiful work there as well.
They definitely have to duck to get onto that thing.
Right. Come out
new ones, yeah.
Come out in front.
And it's just it's a relative, simple color scheme, but it really works. So that stark gray and the highlighting and the weathering and the tracks and the pop of color and the chapter insignia. It's really nice.
I like the smoke marks on the vents in the back he's got too.
All right. Back here.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. Excellent work. Nice one, Greg.
And he built this the right way.
Oh, last cannon forward.
Last cannon's in the front.
Yeah.
Party in the back.
There we go. Excellent. Sulin posted up this fantastic bust.
This is phenomenal.
Brad Pitt from Fury or Inglorious Bastards?
Fury. Yeah. Yep. So in the post in the group, there are another 4 or 5 photos. But yeah, this is one of those things where it's just captures everything about that some of those scenes.
That's so good.
The dirt, the grime.
He did such a good job with like layering the colors to show different textures. Like the leather strapping looks different than his jacket, which looks different than his shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that leather strap over his shoulder just reads as
leather,
sort of hammered leather. It's just exactly that. But yeah, absolutely beautiful work there. He's got a little sort of moisture glint in the eyes.
Yep.
Oh yeah, spectacular stuff. So definitely go and check it out in the Facebook group. There are some.
Yeah, he has a bunch of different angles and stuff. So
yeah, beautiful work, Celine. Awesome. Kelly Rowe.
Nice. Werewolf by Night.
Yep. So
I mean, this is a great model too. Like that's like in my brain, that's what a werewolf is supposed to look like. It's supposed to be like really big upper body, like kind of smaller as they get down towards the legs, but then like the big backwards bent knees, like the back legs of a dog, big like shaggy like wolf head. Like this is such a great miniature.
Yep, and Howling at the Moon. But yeah, beautiful work. So color scheme wise, Jake, is that those pants correct?
So usually when they usually write Werewolf at Night, either he's wearing like ripped up jeans or he doesn't have pants because he's just a werewolf.
Right.
So Kelly can technically paint his pants however he wants. I don't know why they put him in bike shorts, but like
well,
that's
stretchy.
the sculptor.
Bike shorts are stretchy.
So sure.
Cardio in beforehand.
But yeah, but no, it looks great, Kelly. Nice work.
Yeah, I love
again.
That
some more there's some more photos in the Facebook group. Excellent. Awesome. Just quickly, sorry, Louis. Jonathan Palomo says, "Hi, Graham McNeill. I was living in London when the Horus Heresy book series came out. I bought False Gods on the 25th of June, 2006. I still have the receipt.
Still have my receipt. That's a piece of history you've got there, mate.
Yep.
That's pretty great.
Excellent. Luis is currently working on four Raven Guard models at the same time.
So he said he's never done this. He usually works on one model at a time.
Yeah. So yeah, it's keeping everything grouped separately. That'd be the toughest part, I guess. Graham, Luis works in a lot of sub-assemblies. So come over from Gundam and scale modeling sort of stuff where he works on a lot of sub-assemblies. So
yeah,
does,
I should do that with a lot of the models, but I just love seeing it built.
Same. I was like, nope.
With the Primarchs, I did them in pieces, but yeah, all the other ones I paint and then wish I'd built it in sub-assemblies when I can't get the brush under the gun to the chest plate.
So many people say, "Oh, well, if you can't get your brush to it, you can't see it." And it's like, yeah, somehow light bends differently. To
Light will catch it. The photograph will show up all of the things you didn't paint.
Yeah, but no. Hope you enjoyed this part of the process, at least the production lining. But yeah, come along. And Luis also shared this throwback.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think he said it was like a 49 Mercury chop top. But yeah, beautiful work. Excellent fade on those flames.
Yeah, that blending from the yellow to the red is fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. Nice work. Next up, Patrick Keith from Bombshell Minis. Painted up these the Tempestus Aquilons from the is this the Hivestorm?
They're Elysians. They're Elysians. Like
well, he said he painted these up as the Harakoni Warhawks.
Oh yeah, hardcore. Okay, there we go.
So, but no, they do look great. Excellent work.
Nice.
Yeah, I love these. Those models are great. Anything with a jump pack in 40K, I'm on board.
Yeah,
pretty cool. U.S. Marine kind of vibe to the color schemes as well.
Yeah. Yep. Very definitely.
Love it.
I love that the graph pack for these is very much like or it's a great nod to the that classic piece of. Well, I couldn't even tell you who did the art, but a piece of line art from Rogue Trader, or either Rogue Trader or the Compendium back in the day, with the Imperial Guardsman coming sort of down with two pistols.
Down with two, yeah.
But yeah, beautiful work there, Patrick. They look great. Stephen Ryder shared this. He's super happy that Spirit Printing Services did a beautiful job with this photo. So I think probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had Stephen's giant they showed, but got it turned into a nice poster here.
It's super cool.
Looking really good.
That model is like I'm traveling through time looking at that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm in middle school. I'm in middle school looking through the Raul Partha physical paper catalog, filling out a mail order sheet.
Right.
All those black and white lead miniatures you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Paul Bonner did that piece of the Imperial Guard art.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Sounds like it'd be his style.
But no, beautiful work there, Stephen. And Stephen's painting up some more
Lizard Rider.
It's excellent Lizard Rider. This crazy sort of Jabberwocky style head. I don't know why, but it just makes me think Jabberwocky.
It's because of the way the face is with the crazy jowls.
Right. And
Raul Partha made a Jabberwocky miniature, and it looks like that.
Oh, okay, that'd be it. Excellent. But yeah, come along nicely there.
Those are cool.
By seeing some more of that. I think this might be our last one. The slide. Let me see. Otherwise, we get to see the slide of what's happening next week on the show.
All right, folks. So either there's another picture or it's next week.
It's either that, one or the other. What's it going to be?
What's it going to be? Place your bets.
Next week.
We're having PAX Unplugged on next week.
Yes, we're going to have the entirety of PAX Unplugged,
the whole show.
But yes, so next week I'll be showing a whole bunch of photos, telling some stories from PAX Unplugged. Should be good. Yay! It'll also be episode 20, which is our final episode for season 5. Before we take a well-deserved break for the holidays. Should be awesome. I'm actually heading back to Australia for 2 weeks.
Oh, very nice. Very cool.
Hopefully get some nice sunshine and beach weather.
Sun over the winter.
Yeah, it'll be good. Rather than the
bring me home a wombat.
Bring you home a wombat? I'm not sure.
Bring me home a drop bear.
Yeah. We'll go for the drop bear instead.
Yeah, Graham wants a drop bear. I want a wombat.
Well, it's going to be easier to pack 2 drop bears in a piece of luggage.
Have it put it in a separate carry-on.
Mm.
You could probably get the wombat on as a service dog.
Right.
It's our emotional support wombat.
Yeah, there you go.
Emotional support wombat. Yep. Fantastic. We'll see what we do. What we can do. Anyway. Excellent. So thank you everybody who posted photos in the BuildPaintPlay Facebook group. I'm super excited about that. Keep doing it. Keep doing it over the break. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff to come back to next season as well. But yeah.
Make sure you guys watch Arcane, and then make sure you post on the Riot website that episode 3 was the best, and there should be more episodes like that. Episode 4 is the best, and there should be more episodes like that.
Yep,
definitely. I approve this message.
Awesome. Also, make sure you go and buy all of the Graham McNeill novels. How many is that? How many novels have you written so far?
I think at current count, I think it stands at 45.
Wow. I was going to say 30, but 45?
Yep. About 45 novels, I think close to 100 odd short stories. A bunch, lots.
Wow. That's awesome. That's fantastic. I'm super excited.
I like keeping busy.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's great. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Graham, for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's great to see you guys again.
Yeah, definitely cool.
I'm looking at Graham's Wikipedia. You have 30 novels alone working for Games Workshop. So
yeah. Oh, and that Wikipedia page is wildly out of date. I was mean to go. I should go back into it and update it, and like telling all sorts of cool, stupid lies and stories about me.
Yeah. That's the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Do you still do the occasional freelance stuff for GW? Like the last book you have from them is Swords of Kolth in 2021, I think. So
no, the last book that they published from mine was the Lords of the Lance that came out in January this year for the release of the Old World.
Right.
That is not on your Wikipedia page.
No. I mean, as like I say, wildly out of date.
I was going to say
the last Ultramarine story I did. Sons of the Selenar, Fury of Magnus. Lords of the Lance was the last book that I wrote for them, but hopefully more to come.
Nice. Dave, anything else?
No, I think that is it.
Well, thank you everybody for being here. Make sure you guys do all the things to outsmart the algorithm. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, post this other places. A huge thank you to Army Painter for sponsoring us again. I hope anybody who's going, I hope you guys have a good time at PAX Unplugged this week. Make sure you guys be safe, but swing by and say hi to Dave. Dave will probably have stickers again, so he'll probably be handing out some stickers. Make sure you swing by the Army Painter booth and say hi to Kat and Caleb. You can see Chris, who was on our episode a couple weeks ago. Chris will be there. Greg will be there from Turbo Dork. You'll be able to see a bunch of guests that we've had on. A huge thank you to Graham. It was so nice of you to do this and come on, and we really appreciate it. I know that we've been looking forward to this since Dave talked about it a couple weeks ago. So I was really excited. So
it was great to chat to you, and I always enjoy hanging out with Dave for a drink and hang and chat and hobby. So thanks for having me on, guys.
Cool.
Thank you, everybody. Everybody be safe. Have a great week. And as always, do not forget to build, paint, play.
Oh, I said I was ready, but I wasn't.
Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down.